just really started reading as much as I could get my hands on in the financial markets. And one thing led to another. And it really kind of, early on, I was like, okay, so who's the smartest investor out there? What books have they read? What do they think about? And so it led me to Warren Buffett. I kind of became obsessed with anything and everything Warren Buffett related. You can probably see the security analysis book that back there behind me. I had the whole thing tabbed out and highlighted and just totally nerded out on the thing. And, 2008 hits and learned real fast that there was a lot of parts to the investing story that I still didn't understand through that event, and just made me dig in even more. And so through the years, I mean, I've been at it for probably 2 decades nearly at this point, just investing personally and reading as much as I can possibly get my hands on, and then just studying anybody who has made lots of money in the market and just trying to understand how their brain ticks and how they've been able to pick it apart. And here we are. So, I'd say that's probably the Cliff Notes version.
For sure. And then how did you originally come across Bitcoin and kind of crypto as you're doing that studying?
I was not a macro person at all for the longest time. And believe it or not, it's kind of funny because I read Tony Robbins' book. Oh God, I can't even remember the name of. He's done 2 of them. The first one, I think it was just called Money Master the Game, was the first one. And in the book, he talks about Ray Dalio a lot. And I'd really not studied Ray Dalio, didn't know really anything about his approach. But Tony was just, pumping him so hard in this book as if he was the master of everything, right? And here I am as a Warren Buffett person, and just, the propaganda from Buffett is that if it's macro related, you just ignore it and you just look at the individual company, and it's kind of this ground up analysis, and macro is too hard to understand, so you just ignore it. And so Dalio, I was just kind of blown away how much Tony Robbins was talking him up. So I started reading everything I could get my hands on Ray Dalio. Like, how does he have his opinion? Well, why is it structured this way? Why does he have gold in his portfolio? That's nuts, because any Warren Buffett person will tell you gold's worthless. So like all these ideas that were just, they were so counter to everything that I believed up to that point. And I loved it because it was counter to what I thought. And if you study anybody who's made a lot of money in the markets, they absolutely love it when somebody has the opposite opinion of them and they want to understand all the reasons why. So that was me. I was like, okay, I just tried to read everything I can on Ray Dalio. Next thing I know, Ray had posted, and it's not available online anymore, but luckily I got the PDF and I printed this thing before it was taken offline. But his whole, there's a really famous video that Ray Dalio did. It's called How the Economic Machine Works. It's a 30-minute video. I would tell you that video, that 30-minute video is probably more valuable than anything you'll probably ever learn in a business school economics class ever. And I truly mean that. If you don't believe me, pull up the video, watch it for yourself. And I'm pretty much sure that that's probably the conclusion you'll draw at the end of it. Well, anyway, Ray had I would say it's on the shelf back there too. Probably 200 to 250 page manual that was the text behind that video. It went into a lot more detail than that video. And I studied the living hell out of this thing. Just read it again, and then started digging into like all these ideas that Ray had. And so I would tell you that as I look at my investing approach today, I would tell you it's probably 50% Dalio and 50% Buffett as far as the fundamentals. Maybe, 10% you could shave off to some other folks, but in general, I'd say it's a 50-50 split between those two investors as to how I think about markets. And so that's how I started getting interested in Bitcoin, is because I'm looking at all the things from the Dalio approach, and I'm saying, this is pretty darn scary now that I'm seeing the world from a completely different vantage point and all these macro factors. And you've got these 80-year credit cycles, which I was not even aware of as a value investor with a Buffett style approach. But when you start looking at those charts and you see the 10-year treasury that went up for 40 years and now it's gone down for 40 years and now it's at 0%. And well, what does that mean? Well, we can get into what all that means, but as a person who never looked at that, I can tell you it was pretty alarming for me. Probably, oh boy, 5 years ago, I'd say, is whenever the light switch. Well, it's more than that because I started getting into Bitcoin. It was probably 2014 when I started reading all that, and it quickly led me to Bitcoin. And I made my first purchase at the start of the second quarter in 2015 for Bitcoin.